Did you know that Canada is Delaware's #1 export market? Canada and Delaware share a strong, mutually beneficial economic relationship built on trade, investment, and job creation. From chemicals and advanced manufacturing to agriculture and financial services, Delaware businesses rely on Canada as a top destination for their goods and services. Meanwhile, Canadian companies operate across our state, supporting thousands of jobs and strengthening critical supply chains. This cross-border partnership plays a quiet but powerful role in Delaware's economic vitality, making today's conversation with Consul General Tom Clark especially timely. He sat down with us to highlight how Canada and the United States, and specifically Canada and Delaware, are not just neighboring economies, but deeply interconnected partners. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Delaware Deep Dive, a podcast by the Delaware State Chamber of Commerce for our members, featuring our members. I'm your host, Kelly Basil, and today I'm joined by Canada's Consul General in New York, Tom Clark. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
We're happy to have you. Let's just jump right on in. You were appointed to the position by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in 2023. So why don't you tell me and our listeners a little bit about yourself and your background and what led you to this role?
Absolutely. Let me start with what is probably the most asked question that I get, and that is, what the heck is a consul general, and
That is my
what is it that
second
you do?
question.
Well, let's go right there. So, the best way to sort of think about a consul general is that he or she is like an ambassador, but to a smaller area. So, we have an ambassador in Washington for all of the United States. My role representing Canada and Canadian interests is for 5 states. So, it's Delaware, Connecticut, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and of course, New York. We had to choose one of those 5 states to live in, and they chose New York. So that's essentially what I do. But the pockets that I deal with, first and foremost, are business and finance. Then there's a cultural component to all of this, and then very much a political component as well. So that's number one. In terms of being appointed, I'm sort of one of those weird political appointments because normally when you think of a political appointment, you think, oh, that guy raised a lot of money for the ruling party and so on. I had nothing to do with any political party in Canada at
Mm-hmm.
all before I was asked to do this job. I had been a journalist for 45 years. I had been, after that, I was the executive chairman of the largest consulting company in Canada. And when the prime minister gave me a call and he said, "Can I get you to take the New York job?" This will sound a little bit corny and old fashioned, but I said at the time, I said, it's interesting you call because I am one of those people who truly believe that if you've done well because of your country or because of your fellow citizens, at some point in your career, you have to give something back. You owe your country something. So I said, it's interesting that you called because I was thinking about how do I do that? What does that look like? And I think I found my answer. So that's how that all spooled out. And here I am, as they say.
So how does it work then? You've been appointed, you're in the role. Is it a renewable thing or is it a for
Well,
life term?
um, in the United States, everybody serves at the pleasure of the president. We're a little bit different. I serve at the pleasure of His Majesty the King, Charles III. So as long as Charles is happy with what I'm doing here, I can get renewed. But the term is usually a 4-year term, renewable for a year or two if you want after that. And
Understood.
I'm 3 years in, so I got essentially another 2 years to go.
And do you work closely with the Canadian ambassador then, or are you kind of operating in different spheres?
No, I work quite closely. We've got a new ambassador, by the way, in Washington. A lot of folks in Delaware may know him. Mark Wiseman was a fixture around the Northeast of the United States. He was vice chair of BlackRock. He was with Goldman's. He was with the Canada Pension Plan, among others. So, very accomplished business person. And I've known Mark Wiseman for a number of years. So, he's now the new ambassador. I work very closely with him and his team in Washington. Certainly, with everything going on right now, we keep in very close touch. But I'm also in close touch with the Prime Minister, the current Prime Minister, Mark Carney, has been a friend of mine for many years. So we've got a whole bunch of Marks. We got Mark Wiseman, we got Mark Carney, And there are some other marks in there as well.
In my world, I have a lot of Mikes, a lot of M names. So you mentioned DC. So there's a lot of uncertainty and lack of clear direction at the federal level. So Ottawa has been placing an increased importance on strengthening their engagement and relationships at the state level. Why is that important, and how are you accomplishing that?
Because business happens on Main Street, however you want to define Main Street. What happens at the 30,000 foot level is impactful, and it is the thing that ultimately decides the big, big questions. But on day-to-day business, on deals that are made, this happens, as I said, on Main Street or on State Street, I would put it. Um, in all of my dealings with the companies in Delaware, we don't necessarily talk about the 30,000 foot stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about regulatory issues. How easy is it to get the investment back and forth, to get people back and forth, products back and forth, and that sort of thing. So those are sort of the bread and butter issues of any business. And that really happens at the business level, which is not, it's not sitting around the Resolute desk in the Oval Office where a lot of this stuff is decided.
Mm-hmm. So what exactly, how are you boots on the ground in each of the states that you're responsible for?
Well, we have representation not only in New York City but other parts of Pennsylvania and New York. Because Delaware is so close, I get down to Delaware personally as often as I can. And I never go down to Delaware without talking and having a meal with Mike Caranta, who's just sort of a legend and has become a great friend. And I think that honestly, uh, the type of job that I do and what my country expects of me is that I'm not, just giving speeches to people. I'm actually sitting down, having a cup of coffee, taking a look at real stuff, talking about what, people's concerns are and knowing it on that level. So we have two people here in my office whose only job is Delaware. And I get down to Delaware, as I said, as often as I can, which is never enough, but is more perhaps than a lot of people might expect.
Well, and I have to say, so you were at our annual dinner earlier this year, and your team was very intentional about maximizing that trip because it wasn't just you; it was multiple members from your team that were down in Delaware. And I know you worked with our office to reach out to a lot of Delaware businesses so that you could have some face to face time, and I love that intentionality.
Mm. Yeah, we came down. I think on that trip I had five or six of my people in the office, and you're right, we did that intentionally because it's important for all aspects of my office to know what's happening in Delaware, to know who the people are, to know as I said, what the concerns are, what the ambitions are, and so on. You can't do that remotely. You've got to be at the table, literally, in that case, as we were.
So, on the topic of Delaware, you prepared a very insightful folder of information on Canada and Delaware's relationship with each other. I have it sitting on my desk. And I'm going to read some of those stats because I found it surprising, and I'm sure our listeners will also find it surprising how much business Delaware and Canada do with each other. So here's just a few pieces of information. Delaware exports 825 million in goods to Canada annually. Top three goods are fruit and nuts, plastics and plastic articles, and pharmaceutical products. Delaware exports 328 million in services to Canada annually, and top three, financial, business, and insurance services. Delaware imports $1.4 billion in goods from Canada annually. And top three again, it's agriculture, energy, equipment, and finance. Uh, as I react to those numbers, they really highlight how interconnected our economies are. And I'd love to ask from your perspective, what does this level of integration mean in practical terms for employers and employees in Delaware and Canada?
First thing I love about these numbers, Kelly, is that it shows that our trade between Delaware and Canada is essentially balanced.
Mm,
Nobody is wildly out in terms of that. It also shows that Canada is Delaware's number one customer, that we are deeply invested in Delaware. And it really means in the end that when Delaware does well, we do well. So we've got a vested interest in the success of Delaware and the success of Delaware businesses and growing that business as well. It's been very, very good for both sides. And, my mission is to say, well, what more can we do? We've got proof of concept that this works.
hmm
We've got proof of concept that, for a long, long time now, Delaware and Canada have figured out what trade works and where we have put our emphasis. And why not put more emphasis on that? I think that, you know, when I think of Delaware businesses, the ability of them to expand their operations, for instance, if they want to expand into Canada, you're expanding into a jurisdiction where there's predictability, stability, you know what's around the corner, you know what's coming next. I mean, it's a no surprises type of deal that you have with Canada. And similarly, Canadians wanting to expand and to invest in Delaware. Delaware continues to be sort of the gateway to America for many, many Canadian companies. Obviously, the registrations are a very big part of that and have been very, very successful, by the way, for both sides.
hmm
But as you can see, when we talk about all those other products, including agriculture, we're sort of, we're in the food chain, literally, of Delaware. So I think that when you add the whole thing up, um, Delawareans and Canadians have done it well for a long, long time. The numbers that you just read off are proof of that. And so if it's working well, why wouldn't we want to do more of this? And I think that as we look ahead to what we can do together, and here's the thing. A lot of, the old way of thinking of trade is that you make something and I buy it from you, and then I make something and you buy it from me. The new definition of trade is we make stuff together.
mm,
And I think that the more we can think in those terms, what can Delaware and Canada make together? What sort of processes? I'll give you one example. In the automotive industry, which, yes, is in turmoil at the moment, but nevertheless, a car that's on the road in Delaware right now, in Wilmington, for example, that car has probably, or parts of that car have gone back and forth across the back and forth across the Canadian border 6 or 7 times
hmm
before the car was put up for sale in Wilmington. Uh, the integration of a lot of businesses between Canada and the United States is long, long standing and long running. So if we can do more of that, when you are mutually connected that way in terms of manufacturing and in terms of trade, you realize that it is in both of our interests that the other guy do well
Right.
because you become invested in that supply chain as well.
So, what advice can you give to the state of Delaware, the businesses that reside here, when it comes to engaging with your office and nurturing everything that you just explained?
Uh, Give us a call. Operators are standing by. If you call in the next 20 minutes, you'll get a nice knife set. But but seriously, reach out to us here in New York. What we've got to offer the Delaware businesses who may be interested. We've got tons of data. We are able to connect you with exactly the right people that you want connected with. Whether it's you want to explore expansion into Canada for your companies, or whether you want to attract Canadian investment and Canadian expansion into Delaware. Um, I can give a phone number,
Go for it.
which it's 212-596-1628, and that will get you right through. And literally, as soon as we get a call from anybody, it'll go to the right person,
hmm
and they will. we've got quite a few people here in New York taking care of this, and it's our mission. So yeah, give us a call, find us on LinkedIn, whatever way you want, and we will be more than happy to help you out in any way we possibly can.
I ran through my questions quite quickly. I'd love to ask just one more, and it's
Yeah.
really, what didn't I cover that we need to know about?
So I think we've sort of talked around a little bit the elephant in the room of where we are right now. But let me
Hmm.
say just a couple of things about the situation that we face. Um, we're at a moment in history right now that is going to redefine how where we all fit,
Hmm.
what the world is going to look like coming out of this period. Um, and the one thing we know is that it's not going to be the way it was. We are into a new era right now, and we're literally building the plane as we're flying it, trying to figure out where to go. I think, though, that there's going to be some constants involved in this, and the very best of the relationship that we had with each other from 1945 until now. Let's take the very best of that and bake it in to the new relationship that is coming at us. You know, uh, Canadians and Americans have been friends, allies, yes, but we've also been cousins and families, and we're so intertwined with each other. We've got the same geography. Our history is a little bit different, but we've got essentially the same geography. Continental drift does not happen that quickly that suddenly you're going to drift off into the Pacific and we're going to drift off into the Atlantic. So for better or for worse, we're we're each other's neighbors and have been friends for over 250 years. And well, with one or two hiccups along the way. I think we burnt down the White House once. Sorry about that. We won't do that again. But
And dare I say, we beat you in hockey at the Olympics.
ooh, oh, too soon, too soon. Oh,
Sorry, but like you
probably
said, we
too
can
soon
still
for
be
the next.
friends.
I don't know. It's too soon for the next 4 years. Things we can't talk about is hockey. We can talk about anything else.
Anything else?
Um, but I just conclude with this is that we recognize one thing, and we recognize that Americans are among the warmest, kindest, most generous people in the world. And we're going through a moment of history right now where that's being tested.
Mm,
And I think we are all up to the challenge of figuring out if the old way was not good enough and we've got to invent a new way, let's invent a new way that benefits all of us, that really gives advantage to the folks we're talking to right now. Let's make sure that that Delaware Canadian connection is strong and it's fruitful and it's profitable and that it can grow. And I really believe that that is the path that we're on. So I would say to anybody who's wondering, where is this going? I mean, should I be worried about what's around the corner? I wouldn't be worried about it, but I would get on with the business of building the new
mm.
and figuring out what the new world looks like and how and what we want out of it. It's not just, sitting back and letting somebody else decide. It's what we want out of this. And when I think of Delaware and the folks in Delaware, I want that to be part of Canada's future. I want that to be part of what we consider to be our closest allies and friends and business partners. So, let the drama happen at the 30,000-foot level. Getting back to what you said originally, what happens on Main Street and State Street is really where business happens.
Hmm.
And not only business, we talk about business as if it's, after 5 o'clock at night, it's over with and so on. But as you know, Kelly, in business, that leads to friendships and that leads to lifelong friendships in many cases that go on for generations. It's visiting, it's, being in each other's kitchens. So business is sort of just a metaphor
Mm.
for the relationship between Delaware and Canada. And I think it's going to be strong. I think we're gonna get through this.
I appreciate those words, and the key word in all of that is relationships, and just making sure that we intentionally build and cultivate them. And that's a constant thing that we need to make sure that we're each open to each other. So I really appreciate that. And
Just don't mention
I
hockey.
won't mention hockey. I'm so
Okay.
sorry.
You can mention curling. We're happy about that.
You're happy about curling? Okay.
Yeah.
But no, on a serious note, we at the Chamber, we're always ready to, help with all of this, making sure that we connect our members to you and vice versa. So thank you for joining me on this podcast. Typically, I ask my guests, how can they get in touch with you? You gave a phone number. Any other way that is suggested if we were to have people reach out?
Well, as they say, the internet machine
Yes.
is a remarkable thing. Uh, I mean, just look up Consulate General of Canada, New York, or Canada, New York, and something will come up that'll lead you to us, or that number, which I'll give you again in case you've got a pen, 212-596-1628. And thank you. And thank you to the Chamber, by the way. The Chamber has been such a great friend and ally of ours as we've been navigating through all of this. So, to you and to your members, just the appreciation of Canada and the people of Canada for what you do, and it doesn't go unnoticed.
Tom, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciated this conversation. To our listeners, if you have any questions, suggestions for future episode topics, or want to get in touch with me and any of my colleagues at the Delaware State Chamber, you can find our contact information on our website, dscc.com. We're also on social media, Facebook, X, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. Tom, thank you again. I really appreciate this.
Thank you, Kelly. It was fun.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Delaware Deep Dive, brought to you by the Delaware State Chamber of Commerce. Before we sign off, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen. I know podcast hosts say this all the time, but your support is invaluable, and it helps other listeners easily find us. I'm your host, Kelly Basil. We'll see you soon.